Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 15 of Down the Hobbit Hole. My name is Emily, and today is Wednesday, the 28th of June, 2017, and this is my weekly podcast about knitting and spinning and all things making. Coming to you from East Tennessee, where I live with my husband, my very fluffy dog, and my pudgy cat. They are both out here with me somewhere, and yeah, you may hear Tesla panting in the background. Yeah, and you may see, you probably won't see the cat. This is like his first day outside, so he's probably out exploring somewhere. The dog tried to follow him, but I called him back because that would have only pushed him further away from the house. But yeah. If you want to find me online, you can find me on Instagram as MistyMountMakers, and you can find me on Ravelry as MistyMountMakers, and you can find the group on Ravelry in the Groups tab as Down the Hobbit Hole. And if you want to email me for some reason, if you don't want to get in touch with me through Instagram or Ravelry, you can always email me, and that email is emily@mistymountainmakers.com. But all of that information will be down below. We do have a knit along going on right now in the Down the Hobbit Hole group on Ravelry, and we are working on different projects that are Middle Earth themed. So anything Tolkien, anything Lord of the Rings, Hobbit, anything you want. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be like a Lord of the Rings themed yarn and pattern or anything like that. It can, as long as you can tell me why it works, that's fine. And whips are welcome, and I'll have a link to the chatter thread with all the details down below, so you can check that out if you want to. We have until August the 12th, so you have tons of time if you want to take part. We've got about 6 weeks left. Along with knitting and crocheting. Crocheting is totally welcome as well. I always end up saying knitting because that is my preferred craft of choice, but crochet is always welcome. Tesla, calm down. Yeah. We are also trying to get a little more active, so we're tracking our mileage and tracking where we are in Middle Earth. We've had a bunch of people update where they are, so you can find that in the chatter thread as well. I'm going to be updating today, so you can find that there. And if you, I'm just tracking with a Fitbit, but however you're tracking, it's not a race. We are just kind of having fun, and there will be prizes at the end of it. So if you're interested in taking part, you don't have to knit if you just want to get more active, and you don't have to, if you just want to knit, that's totally fine too. We also have an event coming up here locally, so if anyone's in the Knoxville, Maryville area of East Tennessee, I will be doing a trunk show at Hook and Needle to usher in Tour de Fleece, which starts on the 1st. So on July the 1st, I will be at Hook and Needle from 1 to 3 p.m. And honestly, they close at 5. I'll probably be there until they close, but officially the times are 1 to 3. And I'll be there. I'll have all my bats and yarn, so if you want to come hang out and spin, if you need to pick up some fiber for the Tour de Fleece, then it will be there. And Christy will be spinning, I'll be spinning, and Lauren may be there as well. So if you want to come join us, bring your wheel. You don't have to buy any yarn. You can just come and hang out with us. There'll be plenty of chairs available, so definitely come see me and say hi. I'd love to meet some people who are watching the podcast, but it'll be a lot of fun. So hopefully we'll see you there. You may have noticed that I am not, in fact, wearing my mama vertebrae today. Unfortunately, well, I guess not unfortunately, but Tim and I spent a bunch of time this weekend hanging out with my family, and I was supposed to start it blocking before we left, and I wound up totally forgetting about it, and we were just having so much fun that I forgot to block it. But I will try to get that blocked this weekend. Along with going and seeing my family in Gatlinburg, we took one of the stops from the yarn crawl, the East Tennessee yarn crawl, and we stopped by Smoky Mountain Spinnery, which was so much fun. The women who work there were learning how to use a sock knitting machine, and I got to kind of peek in a little bit on that because they're going to be having classes soon and selling sock knitting machines. So I'm really, really excited about that. The classes aren't official just yet, or I shouldn't say they're not official. Their dates have not been set yet, but it's in the works. So I was very, very happy to see that. And Tim got to look at all the different wheels that they had there. He got to see the spindles and kind of wander around and take everything in while I just kind of mooned over all of the spinning fiber. I did end up getting just a couple of things on this trip, and it was all Angelina. So I got this beautiful copper color, and I'm sorry if there's a lot of glare from the baggie. Got this really pretty metallic blue, and this pretty purple. So I'm going to try this out. For now, I've always used Firestar for my bats because I like that I can dye up the colors that I want for different bats. And in fact, I can exhaust dye pots pretty easily without having to take up a burner and just toss in some Firestar to absorb the excess dye. So I have lots and lots of Firestar in all different colors. There we go. I have just tons of it, and I really, really like it, but it is definitely a more subtle look than the Angelina. Ooh. Yeah. There is a teeny tiny little bird that is very angry with me. I think it's angry with me. I don't know what I did. Hopefully it doesn't poop on me. What was I saying? Yes, so I like that the Angelina is a little more distinctive. You can see that sparkle on here a bit better. And I have something with Firestar I'll show in a minute, but yeah, I'm going to try it out. I'm going to see if I like it. For the most part, I prefer being able to dye the colors myself, but I think in certain instances the Angelina might be better. So I'm gonna try it out. We'll see. I should be able to get quite a few bats done with those because you don't really need a lot in order to have it kind of show up nicely in a bat. So we'll see. I might be ordering more of that. Today I'm just drinking water. It's warm, but it's not as hot as it has been lately. So I'm using my spot glass that Tim got me. It's one of my favorite cups. I try not to use it too often because I don't want it to get damaged. And you can kind of see where it says Evil Spock. It's kind of starting to come apart a little bit. But what's the point of having it if I'm not going to use it? On the note of spinning, I think that takes us nicely to finished objects. I have one finished object today, and it is spinning related. So here we go. I left this on the spindle just so that you could see like how packed that is. The only reason there's that much showing is because I crammed it all down just before recording because I didn't want it to all unspool. But this is plied, it's finished, so I'm gonna get it on a nitty knotty, soak it, dry it, and then check the yardage. I'll get some pictures posted. This is for the Spin for All 2017 for Wool Needles Hands podcast, so it's in their Ravelry group. And I really enjoyed this. I was spinning some Rolags that I made at the last Spinning Guild meeting, and I'm really happy with the way that it turned out. I thought it was going to be, you can see all that blue bamboo. I thought this was going to end up being rather brown, because there was a lot of brown alpaca in here, and as it was spinning up, the singles were coming across as very muddy, and I was pretty concerned about that. But now that it's all plied up, it's really pretty. I don't know if I have enough to do a cowl, but I'm definitely going to make something out of this. Might be woven, might be knit. we'll see what I end up coming up with, but it is finished. I'm so happy. As far as works in progress go, I have been working on those socks that I showed you last week, the Nargle socks. And this is just the greatest system for walking around and knitting, because if I need to, which I did this several times while I was out with my family, I can just stick the yarn through if I need my hands. Well, give me 1 second. It doesn't show up well when I'm just sort of mid-row, but we're walking around and Tim goes, "Oh wow, look at that thing over there." And I go, "Oh, I need my hands to go look at that thing over there." You can just slide it through, tuck it in. You look kind of deranged, but at the same time your knitting's handy, and you can just pull it back out and start knitting again. I am pleased because I did 9 inches. I have 9 inches of stockinette stitch, and so here's the first day when I cast it on. This is where I was when I started the podcast. This is where I was by the end of that day, and then each day that I worked on it, I placed a stitch marker before starting. So these 2 days, this is Saturday and Sunday. I think this one was Thursday. I didn't work on it on Friday, and this is my progress so far today. So it's coming along really well, really quickly. I don't have to think about this at all. There's a very angry horse. Yeah, so I don't have to think about this at all. You can see that my gauge changed a little bit. I was using double pointed needles here and then switched over to magic loop, and you can see that the speckles are really, or the blotches, I guess, little darts of color are really consistent here, and then this is where I was using double pointed needles. So definitely a shift in gauge, but it's not going to make any real difference. But I need to get to at least 15 inches of stockinette before I make the next cuff. And I'm keeping my minis, little mini cakes in here so that they don't get damaged. But here they are. And the next cuff is going to be green with a stripe of each. And the stripes will indicate what's going where. So this sock will have a green heel and a pink toe. And the other one will have a pink heel and a blue toe. So it'll have those 2 lines on it. But it's coming along really quickly, and I only have about 6 inches left before I get to do the next cuff. Now, the toes, the plan is, and I think I went over this last week, but for anyone who's new, the plan is to cut in for the heels, just like an afterthought heel, but I'm also going to separate this in the middle and then pick up for the toes. Honestly, I think picking up for the toes is going to be easier than picking up for the heels. But it might just be the same. Probably will be, because as far as I can tell, adding an afterthought heel is mostly just adding a toe. On the last episode of Stranded podcast with Amy, she talked about her afterthought heel patterns that she likes, or maybe she just did a correction on the last one. I was catching up. I'm behind on a lot of my podcasts, but she talked about a couple of different patterns that she likes, so I may end up getting them. They were free patterns, so I may end up giving them a look through before I do this, just to avoid making any fatal mistakes. I guess it's knitting, it's not going to be fatal, but just so I don't make a big blunder and end up wasting all this yarn or something. So I might give it a look through before I start, but I think I should be able to manage it. I did try working on my Falls of Browers socks. They are definitely not to the heel, and I've only done a little bit of space. I'm just not going to show those again until we get to the heel, because I don't think you guys want to see the little smidgens that I've been putting into it every week. So I'm going to keep working on those. I tried to work on them on the drive into Gatlinburg. So we had about an hour, hour and a half to their cabin. But all the roads, you're getting into the mountains, so you're winding a lot more. And I couldn't do it. Knitting stockinette stitch was totally okay. But even just that little bit of ribbing on the front, I just couldn't do it. So I, as you can see, did lots of progress on these socks. I do need to work a little harder on those socks because they are my second entry for the There and Back Again Cal. And not that I'm not eligible for prizes, and I did explain this before, I'm not eligible for prizes, but if I draw my own post in the finished objects thread, I get to buy myself a present. It's just a little rule that I put in for myself so that I could win too. So I'm going to work on them as much as possible, but I am going to keep myself happy by knitting on things that I want to. I do need to finish that before August 12th. So I'll show you guys when I get to the heels, and then I might show you some progress as I finish the leg of it. But I'm not going to keep showing it. It hasn't changed much. It hasn't changed much. You guys don't want to see it again. So the last thing I'm going to show you guys today is I made myself a bat for Tour de Fleece. And it looks very similar. You may have noticed that a lot of the bats that I'm making myself lately are bright yellow. But this is yellow merino with, I think it's 3 ounces of yellow merino, half of an ounce of yellow Firestar, and then a solid ounce of white nylon. I probably could have dyed the nylon, but I really wanted to make this bat, and I didn't want to wait. So I went ahead and just carded it up, and it took 5 blendings in order to kind of smooth out all of those little white strips. I'm much happier with it the way that it is now. The Firestar and the nylon it wanted to stay together. So I had to keep like tearing it apart and moving it into pieces and spreading everything out in order to blend it all in to the consistency that I wanted. But I have about 4.5 ounces here, possibly a little more. I did some rounding with those numbers, but yeah. It's full of Firestar. It's really subtle, which I prefer for this, for this specifically. I wanted it to be just kind of a background note. These are going to be spun for socks. Probably gonna Navajo ply because I don't have enough bobbins on any of my wheels in order to do a 3-ply, like a traditional 3-ply. And the difference being, for a traditional 3-ply, I could either you'd have to have about 4 bobbins total, or I could wind off the bobbin into cakes and ply them together that way, but it's 3 distinct separate strands that you're plying together. Whereas with Navajo plying, you have 1 long strand that you are chain plying together. So in the same way that when you crochet, you chain, it looks exactly the same, but they're just longer. And then it twists it all together and you get a 3-ply. So I'm probably going to do a Navajo ply because I don't think that I will finish doing 3 individual plies, whereas 1 long ply I probably will. But yeah, I'm going to try to spin for socks, which is why this has about 25% nylon content. Just about. The Firestar threw things off a little bit, but so I don't know the exact percentage, but it has enough to give the merino some strength for socks. So I'll have bright yellow sparkly socks, which I am very happy about. Tiber. Got grass, just this big long blade of grass hanging out of his mouth, and he's trying to eat it and spit it out at the same time. Not sure what the plan is there. So I think that's everything we've got this week for projects and events coming up and things like that. So if that's all you're here for, totally fine. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, subscribe below so that you can be updated when the next video is live, and I'll see you guys next week. And for everybody else, we will move on to Shop Update. So once again for Shop Update, I'm going to insert a video so that you can see all the bats, so I don't drop them and get them covered in vegetable matter. We will be having the trunk show on Saturday, so what I'll be doing is I will be updating the shop. We're going to keep it to the normal time this week, and it'll be tomorrow, which will be Thursday, the 29th of June at 6 p.m. Eastern, and the shop will remain open until Saturday morning, when I'll put the shop in vacation mode until after the trunk show, so that I can do inventory and update everything afterwards. So if you see a bat that you like, you may want to get it, just so that it doesn't disappear when the shop comes back from vacation mode. I'll go ahead and insert that video here. That shop update will be happening on June the 29th, which is a Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern. Hey, kitty. Ooh. This is Tiber. Getting his first day where he's allowed to be outside and running around free. Which, actually, that's all I have for the shop update, so we'll move on to the not-so-nitty portion. Tiber has been a little menace at about 2 or 3 in the morning every night for the past 5 or 6 nights. He just comes into the bedroom, freaks out, runs around, runs out of the room, runs back into the room, jumps up onto the bed with me, covers my nose in cat hair, and then tears off again. Just in and out of the room, back and forth. So I think he's got too much energy. So I'm going to try letting him out to play during the day so that when he comes in at night, he's tired. I know he's supposed to be nocturnal, but he's been really bad the past few nights where I've been just moving in a fog. And the pollen count has been much higher these past few days as well, so I've been extra groggy. But I think this will work. He seems pretty happy. And he's not trying to avoid me, which is what I thought would happen. I thought that if I let him outside, he would keep away from me, but I kept the dog from chasing him, and he seems pretty happy to just kind of hang out with me and be in the general vicinity of me while we're out here. We'll see how easy it is to get him back inside later, but hopefully he's not yowling outside the window at 3 in the morning. We spent the whole weekend hanging out with our family. or my family, which I guess is Tim's family now because we're married, but it was my dad's side of the family. We all hung out. They were staying in a big cabin in Gatlinburg, so we drove out both days to go see them, and we had a lot of fun. I hadn't been out to Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge really, except for a couple times to go out to the spinnery, but it's weird. Like, it's one of the biggest tourist cities in just the entire United States, and I don't understand it. It's just places that are just go-karts. Like, I don't even know how many go-kart places there are out there. There are so many. I rode in on go-karts. It was the first real time I was ever in a go-kart, and Tim drove both times, and it was fun. It was terrifying, but it was fun until we were driving home right after, and I was so car sick, so nauseous. I just kind of kept my head down, and when we got home, I just crawled into bed and went immediately to sleep. It was awful. So no more go-karts for me, but Tim had so much fun, and he was kind of racing around. He wasn't as nimble once it was a two-seater, but he had a lot of fun. And the kids were having a blast. They were running around. They loved all the go-karts. Pretty much anywhere you go, there are going to be go-karts. The next day, we walked up and down the main stretch of Gatlinburg. That was fun. Lots of shops. Pigeon Forge is the same, where they have so many shops that are just like $9.99 or less, and my aunt was like, well, I want to come here because I want to buy some crap. I just want to buy cheap crap. That's the point of this. And I was like, oh, well, then you came to the right spot. Because there are a bunch of places that are $9.99 or less, and then there are shops that are $9.98 or less. And that's just the whole strip. It's like knife shop, go-karts, cheap crap, as my aunt would call it. But they really enjoyed themselves, and so it was totally worth it going out there. I haven't seen them in a while, and we're thinking, because it's every 2 years, we're thinking of going to Washington State next. That is super exciting. My cousin lives out there, and I can't wait for that to happen. I really want to go out there. We just have to be able to take Tesla, and then it should be okay. Last week, and this is a bit of a downer note, I'm going to try to be a little brief with this, but last week I tried to talk about, not in detail or anything like that, but we processed a few of the birds, and that was very hard for me, and I had to kind of wait until, because it was 2 weekends ago that we did that, and I kind of had to wait until I could say it without being too emotional. But it was a very hard day for me. We only did 3 birds, and I'm making the third one for dinner tonight. We already ate the other 2, but that was really hard for me. It was not something I've ever done before, but, and if I seem like I'm being a little flat about it, I just don't want to. I'm not going to dwell on it too much. We're going to move past it in just a second. But as hard as it was, my belief is that those birds were very happy in the time that they lived here, and I can see them flapping about over there. They were very happy while they were with us, and they got to be outside in the air, clucking about, watching the turkeys go by, and we ended things as quickly as we could for them so they wouldn't suffer. And so we know these birds led a good life, they were cared for, and they died quickly. Whereas the birds from the store, which we will still have to buy, because we don't have enough meat to supply ourselves, but we don't really know how those birds were treated. And we could find a smaller farm and buy meat from them, but it's very expensive to do that. Understandably expensive, but it is very expensive to do that, and we can't really afford to do that. So anything we can't grow ourselves, we do have to get just kind of from Kroger, our grocery store. But we are going to try again next year. The flavor wasn't all that different, but the texture and like instead of when Tim was reheating his lunch the next day, instead of having like dry, crumbly chicken, it was actually still moist and tasty and it just had a really good texture to it. So we do enjoy growing the birds ourselves, raising them ourselves and treating them well, and I was able to be more grateful towards the bird rather than being too upset to eat the bird. We were worried about my reaction to all of this, so the rest of the birds will be joining them this weekend coming up, but yeah, I just thought I'd update you guys about that. The girls will be moving into the tractor once the boys are done with it, and they'll get their fresh greens every day, so they'll be happy and get to run around the way that, or on fresh ground every day, so they'll like that too. Okay. In other property news, we haven't seen the turkeys lately, but I'm sure they're around here somewhere. Maybe now that the chicks are getting bigger, they have a new route or something like that. I'm not sure exactly what they eat out in the wild, so maybe they've chosen a new path with more food or something like that. Still haven't seen the deer, but that can be good because our apple trees, our young apple trees, haven't been decimated, because one of the trees that we got is a white pear Maine, and our friend gave it to us because the deer were destroying it on his property, but somehow we haven't had a problem with that yet, which is exciting. Hopefully that will continue to be the case. But yeah, we don't have much planned for coming up this weekend. I have the guild meeting and trunk show, so I won't be at the guild meeting too long, my spinning guild meeting in Knoxville, so I won't be there too long, but then I'll be going to the trunk show, hanging out at Hook and Needle, and then we're going to a friend's house for a little get-together. Sunday we will be processing the rest of the boys with those same friends. They're going to come over and help. And we're doing some rearranging of the chickens on Monday so that the girls can be in the tractor. But yeah, not too much planned. Just getting ready for Tour de Fleece. So yeah, it was a bit of a shorter episode today, I think. We'll see after editing. Might be just as long as normal. I think that's all we've got to talk about this week. So thank you so much for tuning in, for everyone who's watched. If you have been coming back, thank you. I really appreciate it. And if this is your first time, I hope you like it. I will see you guys next week. And happy making. Bye, guys. Okay. And then Smoky Mountains Dinnery. People can yarn crawl with us. Oh, I'm being very jumpy with this.
Yes, it is. It's very interesting. And we'll let you fill out one of these. This will enter you in our drawing. You're eligible for one of these prizes.
That was very much. You know what? There's always a chance.
Yeah, you never know.
There you go.
It was bid in inches.
manage that? He's only been out here about an hour. Oh, you're such a wimp.